Hi everyone, here's my complete build guide for Dahlia. In this video, we'll start by looking at her kit and playstyle, followed by her Eidolons, her best builds, and finally her best synergies. Timestamps are available if you want to jump to a specific part. If this guide helps you out, don't forget to hit the like button. Also, check the pinned comment for extra notes or updates. All right, let's get started. Before we get back into the video, quick question. Want to guarantee your favorite character or signature light cone but you're short on jades? Then check out Buff, a safe and reliable top-up site for Honkai StarRail for less. And all you need to do is select the items you want, enter your UID, server, and email, then choose your payment method. After that, just click Top Up. You can pay with Razer Gold, Google Pay, PayPal, and more. Use the link in my description or pinned comment or scan the QR code on the screen right now for up to 50% off your order. You save money, you support the channel, and you secure your next favorite character. All right, back to the video. So, the Dahlia, she's a 5-star fire unit following the path of Nihility. She enables new mechanics for break teams while providing solid damage buffs. Looking at base stats, she has decent HP, solid attack and defense, has 96 speeds, which is pretty slow, with a 130 energy cost ultimate. Starting with her abilities, her basic attack is the same old single target hit, dealing fire damage. Her skill deploys a zone for 3 turns. While in the zone, all allies get 50% break efficiency, and now they can deal super break damage even if the enemy is not weakness broken, which is the biggest increase in damage for any break team. Now, even when the team is trying to break the enemy to start doing damage, that attack will also trigger super break. A few things to keep in mind here is that the enemy still needs to take toughness damage, which will be converted into super breaks. So, keep that in mind. Then we have a talent. At the start of the battle, Dahlia gains 35 energy and makes herself and the unit that triggered the battle the dance partner. So, like if your Firefly triggers the combat by using a technique or just by attacking, then Dahlia herself and Firefly become dance partners. Now, if there is no second dance partner, like if Firefly dies, or if you simply trigger the combat with Dahlia, then she will make the unit with the highest break effect stat the second dance partner. And everything in her kit revolves around these dance partner units. They get 60% super break damage multiplier. And after they attack, Dahlia will launch a bounce follow-up attack, dealing 5 hits of damage to random enemies. The follow-up attack can happen once per Dahlia turn. And this attack has a 200% super break damage multiplier if dealt to a weakness-broken enemy. So yeah, pretty solid damage output. For her ultimate, she inflicts all enemies with the will state for 4 turns and deals fire damage. Enemies in the will state will have their defense reduced by 18% and will get weakness implant of all the dance partner types. So if you're playing with Rappa, then both the imaginary element from her and fire from Dahlia will be implemented on the enemies with the will state. A few other things to keep in mind for this ultimate is that this will state is not based on Dahlia's turns. It's based on the enemy's turns. So, if an enemy is super fast, they will cycle through it really quickly. Also, any new enemies that get spawned won't have the effect immediately. So it's actually better sometimes to hold her ultimate. Like, if you can one-shot the first wave of any challenge without her ultimate, then it's better to hold on to it and use it when the boss arrives. Otherwise, that state will end with the first wave of enemies. And this can be an issue in pure fiction, although one good about this state is that you don't need to build effect hit rate on Dahlia for this to be applied. This has guaranteed chance for her technique. Dahlia makes a dimension that makes all enemies unable to attack you. And when entering combat, she automatically deploys her skill zone and deals super break damage based on the toughness damage dealt when you enter combat. For level up priority, the only thing that you need to level up is her talent and ultimate because both the super break damage multiplier from her talent and the death down from her ultimate scales up levels. Apart from those two, you can simply leave her basic attack and skill at level 1. Now for her traces, the first one at the start of the battle, it gives break effect boost to her teammates based on her own break effect for 1 turn. And this effect can trigger again for 3 turns when Dahlia receives healing or shields. So she kind of wants to have a sustain in the team to keep the break effect buff active. The second trace generates 1 skill point when she does her follow-up attack, and this can trigger every 2 follow-up attacks. So basically 1 extra skill point every 2 Dahlia turns. The third trace is a bit specific. If any ally implants a weakness on any target, they get a 30% speed boost for 2 turns. And if said ally is a fire character, then they deal additional 20 fixed toughness damage with their attacks and regenerates 10% of their max energy. So this basically screaming Firefly. She's the only unit that can take full benefit from this. She's a fire unit, can implant weakness, and has a huge max energy. Other units like Boothill can trigger the speed buff, but not the energy path. Also, Dahlia herself can also trigger this. For her bonus stats, after maxing out her traces, Dahlia gains 37.3% break effect, 18% effect res, and 5 speed, which is great since her base speed is so low. Now for her Eidolons, her E1 has been a major point of discussion throughout the beta cycle. It gives all allies the 60% super break damage multiplier from a talent and gives 40% extra super break damage multiplier to the dance partners. So it becomes 100% super break damage multiplier, which is basically what few gives. Also, after the dance partner attacks, they deal 1 instance of fixed toughness damage equal to 25% of the enemy's max toughness. This happens once for each target hit, and the trigger count gets refreshed after the target receives a killing blow, which basically means it is 1 time for normal mobs, but for bosses who have multiple health bars and change phase after they receive a killing blow. The trigger count also refreshes every time they enter a new phase. So like if the boss has 3 phases, then this can trigger 1 time for each phase. Now for the toughness damage itself, it is definitely great for some places, but it's not the end-all be-all for all break teams. For a game mode like Apocalyptic Shadow, deleting 25% of the enemy's toughness bar is crazy strong. On the other hand, pure fiction, where most of the enemies have very small toughness bars, it makes little difference because usually all of the break damage dealers can already break most pure fiction mobs in 1 attack. Also, since with Dahlia, you can do super break damage even when the enemy is not broken, the value of breaking the enemy faster is not as high as before, but that doesn't make it bad. As I said earlier, this is broken against bosses with large toughness bars like Apocalyptic Shadow, but not so much against smaller mobs like Pure Fiction. As for the Super Break damage multiplier, it's a very solid damage increase for any and all break teams. Her E2 decreases all type res of the enemies by 20% when Dahlia is present on the field. And when enemy targets enter combat, they immediately gain the wilt state for 3 turns. Now, this basically fixes the uptime issue of her ultimate. As I said earlier, Dahlia's wilt state duration from her ultimate is based on the enemies. So, if a new enemy spawns, they don't get the wilt state until Dahlia uses her ultimate on them. So this Eidolon simply applies the wilt state as soon as the enemy enters combat, even if Dahlia doesn't have her ultimate up. It's a really good quality of life upgrade. Her E4 increases the hits, form her follow-up attack by 5. So, it's 10 hits now, and each hit increases the damage taken by the enemies by 12% for 2 turns. Basically, applying vulnerability to the enemies that get hit by her follow-up attack. This has to be one of the better E4s among the bad E4s of most HSR units. Lastly, her E6. It gives 150% break effect boost to all dance partners. And after Dahlia uses her follow-up attack, the next action of the dance partner is advanced by 20%. This is similar to a dance-dance-dance effect, but it occurs more frequently as it can trigger every turn. As expected, this is an extremely powerful and borderline broken E6. Overall, in terms of value, her E1 and E2 are the best one to pick up. Her E1 is great with the super break damage multiplier, but also with the HP inflation and enemies having much higher toughness bars. The 25% fixed toughness damage will definitely gain more value over time. For the E2, as I said, it fixes the uptime issue for her ultimate and gives more damage increase with the resistance down for the enemies. For more consistency, E2 is by far the best investment for Dahlia. Anything beyond that is largely overkill, and at that stage, investing in other units will generally yield better overall damage gains. Now let's move on to her builds. First, we have her Lightcones, and of course, her signature is her best in slot. It gives 60 break effect and gives 32% break damage boost to the user and the unit that triggered the battle. Basically, the dance partner's at S1. This is the same type of break damage boost that E4 Fugue has, and it adds another multiplier to the base damage. Also, when the user implants weakness on any target, it recovers 1 skill point. This effect can trigger once per ultimate, so basically 1 extra skill point per ultimate combined with a second trace. This makes her the best skill point generator for any break team, especially if you have an E0 Firefly. For alternatives, there are 2 other 5-star options that you can use. First is the Cypher's Lightcone, which increases speed and inflicts defense down on the enemies. The second part of the effect does require her to be 170 speeds, but she can get that with the speed increase from this Lightcone and a Trace 3 speed buff. Also, having high speed allows her to cycle faster, which can somewhat fix the uptime issue from her ultimate. It's the best alternatives if you don't have her signature. The other option is the Fugue Lightcone. It gives the same amount of break effect as a signature and can implant break vulnerability to the enemies. Now do know that for both Cypher and Fugue Lightcones, you do need some effect hit rate to consistently apply those debuffs. For 100% base chance like Fugue's Lightcone, you can go for around 40% effect hit rate to guarantee the debuff. But for 120% base chance, like Cypher's Lightcone, you can go as low as 20%, and it should be fine. Lastly, for 4-star options, the best is going to be the Resolution Shine's Lightcone at S5. It has 100% base chance to decrease defense of the enemies by 16%. Now, 100% base chance does mean that you need some effect hit rate, but even with that, this is a really solid Lightcone option for Dahlia. Also, do know that since this Lightcone does not stack, if you're already using it on your Fugue, then you can use it on Dahlia. So keep that in mind. Overall, her signature is a really good pickup if you're struggling with SP, which should be the case for most E0 Firefly users. As for if you don't have any of the Lightcones I have mentioned up till now, you can just go for F2P 5-star Lightcone Solitary Healing. It's not the best, but it's usable. Now for her relic sets, the best one is going to be the Iron Cavalry set. It gives break effect and def ignore for super break damage. It does have a condition of 250% break effect, but you will be able to reach that with the help of our supports. For alternatives, you can also use the Thief set, or just go for a 2-piece combo of any break sets, or even speed sets. But overall, the Iron Cavalry set is just the best one. For planar sets, the Forge set is going to be your best in slot. The extra speed increase will be great for faster rotations, and the extra break effect will help her reach the 250% break effect goal, especially if you don't have her signature Lightcone. Other sets like the Dahlia set can also work, But as you'll see in a bit, Dahlia wants to have high speed so that she can get around her uptime issues from her ultimate. And for that, the 6% speed from the Forge set is much more useful. For other sets like Von Whack, you don't really need it because she will already be one of the fastest units in the team, and she already applies her zone at the start with the technique. So overall, just use either the Forge set or the Thalia set. For Relic Stats, here's a build for reference. Your main goal with Dahlia is high speed and break effect, since she doesn't need any effect hit rate, or I guess only a bit, if you don't have a signature Lightcone. Your main focus should always be getting high speed and break effect. So for main stats, either HP or attack or effect hit rate is fine if you need it for Lightcone like Resolution Shines. Just make sure that it has high break effect and speed substats. For boots, always go with speed. For orb, either HP or attack is fine as long as it has high speed and break effect substats. Even though her ability scales up attack, her super break damage is based on her toughness damage. So having HP instead will make her more tanky. But your main priority is better speed and break effect substats. So if an attack orb gives you those substats, then use that. While energy regeneration rope may allow faster ultimate usage in some teams, it comes at a major damage cost. This is because her damage output and the break effect, buff from her first trace, both scale with her own break effect. Still, you can use ERR for faster ultimate rotations, especially if your Dahlia is not as fast. And if you have a signature Lightcone, then that can substitute for the lack of break effect from the rope. For stat goals, I recommend trying to reach around 180 to 200% break effect on Dahlia at least, so that with supports like Fugue or Harmony MC, she will have enough to trigger the full Iron Cavalry set. As for speed, there is no speed goals, but try to go as fast as you can. More speed means more energy regeneration and faster ultimate rotations, which will help Dahlia with her ultimate's uptime issues. Now, for her rotations, the best is going to be your normal skill basic rotation. This makes her 2 to 3 skill point positive with her follow-up attack, which is a lot, and you get your ultimate back in around 3 to 4 turns, which for a fast Dahlia is good enough. You can make the rotation short by going for a skill, basic skill rotation. This will make her 1 skill point positive with the follow-up attack and give her a bit faster ultimate like 3 turns. This can be good if you don't need the extra skill points from Dahlia. Overall, based on most gameplay testing, an ERR rope is most effective on units like Rappa, who lack an inherent weakness implant, as she must rely on Dahlia's ultimate. And for those situations, having a little to no downtime on Dahlia's ultimate is much more important than her personal damage or break effect buff. All in all, use either of the rotations based on what teams you are playing. Finally, her best team and synergies. The first and the most synergistic unit for any Dahlia team is Firefly. At this point, you could say that Dahlia was made for Firefly. Aside from the obvious stuff like weakness break efficiency buff and the ability to do super break damage even when the enemy is not weakness broken, which are already massive buffs, but also with her 5 weakness implant from her technique and enhanced skill. She has 100% uptime on Dahlia's Trace 3 buffs, so like 30% speed, 20 fixed toughness damage, and 10% energy every enhanced skill, which is nuts. First thing first, the 30% speed buff does allow her to do 5 enhanced skills on the first cycle. It does require some heavy speed tuning and stuff, like DDD, but it can give her very front-loaded damage for the first cycle. And speed in general for Firefly is always better for more turns. As for the other parts, like the 20 fixed toughness damage, that's actually a very high increase in damage when converted into super breaks. And lastly, the 10% energy. Usually for Firefly, after her first ultimate rotation, she requires 2 normal skills to get back into the combustion state. But with this and the usual 4 turns inside her combustion state, she will trigger the 10% energy 4 times because she implants weakness with her enhanced skill. So, with a single use of her normal skill, she will get back into her combustion state. With this, Firefly will have no downtime on her combustion state. She by far benefits the most from Dahlia. In terms of teams, the best one for maximum damage is going to be a no-sustain team with Fugue and Harmony MC. With all 3 of the supports giving super break damage multiplier, the damage becomes absurdly high, but it is very bad in terms of survivability. So, for another no-sustain team, using Ruin Mei might be better as her delays and faster breaks with the weakness break efficiency buff will help with sustain. Now, it will lose a bit of damage, but is still much better than using an actual sustain. Now, for game modes like Anomaly Arbitration where you need a sustain, using either Lingsha or Gallagher can be solid options. Also, if you don't have Fugue, you can replace her with Harmony MC, and there won't be much of a damage difference, at least in Firefly's case. The most F2P team is going to be with Harmony MC and Ruin Mei, who is technically free, and Gallagher. For the next character, we have Rappa. Similar to Firefly, she also benefits from the more obvious buffs, like weakness break efficiency and the super break on non-broken enemies. The biggest value that she gets from Dahlia is the weakness implant from Dahlia's ultimate, since Rappa doesn't have a weakness implant of her own. But given Dahlia's long ultimate rotation, you will most definitely face some downtime with a weakness implant. Also, the ability to do super break when the enemy is not broken doesn't mean that she doesn't to break the enemy ever, because Rappa still gains charge from breaking. So in those cases, the weakness break efficiency buff will come in handy. It's just now with Dahlia, the time breaking the enemy will still contribute to the overall damage. Also, given most of the break units for this team are fire or imaginary, they can all benefit from the imaginary and fire weakness implant and break the enemy faster, which will generate more charge for Rappa. For teams, the best in terms of damage is still the usual no-sustain team with RMC and Fugue. But you can also use RMC in place of Fugue, and Ruin Mei in place of RMC if you don't have Fugue in your account. Although Rappa heavily benefits from Fugue's exo-toughness mechanics, as more breaks means more charge for her. For a team with sustain units, the usual Lingsha or Gallagher will be great. Where in pure fiction, a team with Lingsha is not that much behind in damage output than a sustainless team, as that healing will also trigger Dahlia's first trace for a huge break effect buff for the team. And pretty much everyone in the break team can deal damage, so it will add up. Next, we have Boothill. Previously, I said that he least benefits from Dahlia, and I still kinda hold that fact, but I didn't really explain what he does gain from Dahlia. What he gets is damage, a lot of damage, and in various ways. Of course, the extra super break damage multiplier really boosts his damage. But just like Rappa, Boothill at the end of the day still wants to prioritize breaking the enemy, as that will trigger his talent for maximum damage. So the extra break efficiency buff really helps with that. Another benefit is going to be the speed buff, which is not as consistent with Boothill as with Firefly, as Boothill only implants weakness with his technique and ultimate. But still, with that speed buff and some high enough speed stats, it can get him 3 to 4 turns per cycle, which is massive. Also, with Dahlia being able to implant fire weakness, Boothill can now use the Forge set without any issue and take advantage of that extra speed boost. Similar to Rappa, since most of the team is fire here, they can help break the enemy faster for Boothill to deal maximum damage and more consistent breaks. Overall, I still think Boothill doesn't get as much value from Dahlia as someone like Firefly, but he is definitely comparable to Rappa. For teams, I wouldn't really recommend a no-sustain team with him, as it's hard for him to stay alive because of his taunt. But if you want, you can use Ruin Mei in place of RMC for some sustain with the extra delays. Also, with both Dahlia and Ruin May, and if you have an E1 Fugue, then that's 150% break efficiency, which is a lot. A no-sustain team is great if you can manage it, but for longer battles like Pure Fiction or Anomaly Arbitration, having a sustain like Lingsha or Gallagher is recommended as it will trigger Dahlia's first trace for more break effect and more overall damage. Overall, Dahlia is a great character for any Super Break team. If you have characters like Firefly, Rappa, or Boothill and are interested in playing Super Break comps, then she is definitely worth pulling. She is a choice-based unit. If you want to further optimize and strengthen your break teams, then she's a must-have for your account. However, if not, then she won't provide much value for you. And that's going to wrap up my guide on Dahlia. I really hope this helped you build her properly. If you have any questions, requests, or run into any issues, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. As always, if you enjoyed the video, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.